Welcome to the Grow It Forward podcast. Hi, I'm your host, Tracy Levine. Today I will be talking with Larryi Ding, the CEO and founder of ABLELIFE.
Yeah, Larry, as I was thinking about all of our talks, what was really interesting when I went back and looked at your bio was the fact that you had this hugely successful career at a Fortune 10 company that by all standards is where everybody wants to get to with their career. And then you start reading a little further down in your bio, you realize that you walked away from it. What made you think now it's time to do something different?
I would say it's really about what I have seen over the past few years. You look at through my career, right? I tend to just only work for the leaders in that particular field, whether it's Mitsubishi. That's whether I found my first job in Japan, and then Lucent as the leader in telco, as well as Booz Allen as a leading consulting firm, and AT&T. Right? It's the largest TMT company on the planet at a Fortune 10, right? But I think a lot of time you have to think about what's really important to you, right? I think getting a great job, a great career in a big Fortune 10 or 50 company is great. But at the same time, you ask yourself, right, what's the most important to you, right? If you're looking for a very stable career, going up the pyramid, and also just let's also understand that they're no joke, right? In those large organizations, right? You made it, you become a senior executive at the top, but most of the time people just don't make it, whether it's because of luck or because of certain events and such, right? But when I look at myself over the past few years, I start to see innovation really coming from a lot of disruptors, right? Whether it's Amazon cloud, or it's a lot of startup I've been, working with. And fortunately, I've been able, even during my last few years at AT&T, I was able to work with a lot of startups, right? In the cloud, in the AI, as well as a lot of application layer, make me realize that, hey, given my passion, I always want to do something different. I'll always want to make an impact. And I believe, given what I have, my experience, and the people I know, I think I believe that I was ready to make a jump, right? Do something totally different and take a risk. So I think at the bottom of it, it's all about what's most important for you to do, and what's the right timing to do things. But also at the same time, as you can see, right? And I still believe that going in and between large corporate company and startup, it might not be a bad thing, because actually it gets you exposed to both sides of the coin and know what's the best and most important for you.
And I think that's really solid advice in a disruptive market, to be able to see both sides of the coin. But something really interesting you said was that when AT&T was looking at startups and new technology, that you got involved with that. And one of the things that strikes me is a lot of people are afraid to put their foot in the water when things seem like they're bleeding edge. It seems like such a career risk. What mental exercise did you go through, or is it just innate for you to say, this is new, I'm interested, I'm going to jump in, even if it is bleeding edge?
I would say it's all about people, right? When talk about people, it's actually two aspects. One is that yourself, if you are part of your family, look at your extended supporting system, right? Especially from your family, where you just want to make sure, right, that whatever a big move or big risk you want to take, you get full support from your family, right? And they're willing to be there with you, and also be prepared just in case, right? Again, even big companies go down, we look at the recent history, right? But startup is more risky, right, in many cases. So you just got to prepare yourself physically, mentally, financially. But I think mentally is the most important. Just make sure that you have a supporting system, and you have a backup plan just in case something happens. And I think that's applied to your family and all that, right? So they need to be ready as well. If you have a big conflict of desire or purpose, you want a purpose, that it's not going to work. right? You got to be very clear. You need a big supporting system from your loved ones. And that's very, very important. I cannot just stress enough about the importance of this. Second piece is that about your own network. And you probably heard that I was actually rated by CEO Today magazine as one of the most connected people in the whole Silicon Valley ecosystem. It's also because you have a supporting network from people you know, contact. When I talk about contacts and network, it's just not about how many people you have connect on LinkedIn. It's about when there are about a dozen people or more or fewer people you can really go to talk about real issue, and they're willing to help. And this kind of network can only be built over time through trust and experience of working together. And if you don't have it today, I encourage everybody to look into your existing network, people, whether it's a colleague or partner or friends, professionally, that you can always go to share an idea and feel, have the trust to talk to each other without afraid of being, somebody, do something on your back. And that's very important as well. And it is those kind of people who will help you to prosper, help you during difficult times. And I cannot stress enough about that. So at the end of the day, in my view, it's all about people.
So when I hear you talking about that, as far as the networking, it's very interesting how you think about networking. Do you think for people who are doing networking, it's really important to do it, as you talk about, to get rid of your own feedback loop and your own ideas to expand, what you're thinking? Has there been a time in your career that you've reached out to your network and you thought you were going to do one thing, but after talking with them, you changed what you were going to do?
I would say it always happens, but even more importantly, I think most of the cases that, work in the semiconductor business or in a hardware business, break-in process is very important, right? I think it applies for any idea or anything you want to do, right? You have an initial idea that what I call as a raw product, but it's talking to those people with similar experience, right? Or have done things you wanted to do. They will help you to make it more solid. So this is almost like a breaking process. So they will help you. They will actually only make things better for you. So most of the time I see, it's not like they will come back, it's bad idea, Larry, don't do that. If this is really bad idea, likely you're going to stop. But most of the time they actually say, hey, Larry, did you consider that? You should also look into that aspect, right? This is how you can do to mitigate your risk. And by the way, Larry, let me introduce you to so-and-so you can talk to share their experience and help you. This kind of feedback that is more common as long as you go to the right people.
Well, with that in mind, any advice you would give to people out there who are now finding themselves in voluntary or involuntary career change, and they're going to have to change their path, they're going to have to think about how to move it forward with new ideas? Could you share with them some lessons that you've learned when you've pivoted along the way in your career?
That's a great question, Tracy. So I would just say I want to share three aspects, right? Number one, the most important thing is that don't panic, right? A lot of time when things like happen, it also creates opportunities, right? So I think panic is the last thing you want, because you have to believe, right? There's always more solutions than problems but you just have to think about what's the best for you, what's the best action to take, number one, right? So don't panic. If you panic, you feel you have the fear, you know what? Just be yourself and take a drink, non-alcohol, just calm down, because people tend to make irrational decisions during a panic, number one. Again, I cannot stress enough. Second, I think what you can do is that really think about what is the most important to you, right? What and against, as well against the industry you're in. In some cases, the path you have so far might not be the one that will endure, right? So this is really about the time you can put your reset button and just think about hey, have I doing in the right field? Am I doing the right job? Have I have the right job for myself over the past few years? Should I do something different? And thirdly, just like I said, talk to people, talk to your family. I think when you talk to family, be frank to them and just say, hey, here is what will happen next. Is this have a plan to survive the next month or quarter, whatever, right? But also understand things will getting better, and I strongly believe that. Number two, talk to a lot of your friends, your people in network you can trust. Like I said, during the previous question, is to seek advice. I think those are three things you can do in order to prepare you for a plan, right? To develop the right plan for yourself. But don't get me wrong, things will be tough. There'll be a lot of challenges, right? You will not feel comfortable. But this is the time when it is really important at the right timing to get out of your own comfort zone and do something different. And I can guarantee you when you come out of it, when you look back, you just say, hey, you know what? I'm sort of glad this happened to me because of this, I'm getting stronger. And it actually forced me to move into a direction that I'm not willing to take, but this is the right thing for me to do. This is the right time to do that because you don't have too much option. It will just force you naturally to go into what the right thing for you to do. I know it's difficult, but I don't want to stress. This is very difficult. It is difficult like hell, but you just have to do that. And it's the right time to do that. And this is a rare opportunity for you to think about yourself, your career, and all that to do the right thing. It could be that, hey, maybe I just stop what I do. I want to take an online course, right? To get my certificate and all that. Digital makes things easy. So just think about this as a reset time for something better down the road.
And for people listening, I want to tell people about the first conversation I had with you, Larryi, and you told me about ABLELIFE, which is a company you're running that now you're changing the direction of that company, just like you were just talking about before, changing the direction from where you thought you were going. Can you share with us what ABLELIFE does and how it will eventually help the current situation?
Definitely. So myself and a bunch of engineers and business people have worked on ABLELIFE for the past 5 years or so, right? We started from water, and we have found a very interesting solution where we can actually treat bacteria and other pathogens like certain viruses and fungus in water without leaving a trace. So think about the traditional way of treating water, right? You literally dissolve something in water, killed all bad stuff, but it also makes the water very hard to drink, right? But we have found a solution where we have developed a solid molecule that will treat water and kill all the bad stuff upon contact, but without leaving a trace into the water you drink. And also this solution, this molecule can actually stay almost forever without the breakdown of the molecule, the material. But we had a lot of challenges over the past few years when we do water. Why? Because in the US, drinking water is a very competitive market. There are some big players already, and we're looking at sort of two areas that we're doing a lot of pilots and with a lot of success, right? One is drinking water outside the United States, where in third world countries, tap water is not safe to drink, and they do really help. And also, by the way, what I forgot to mention is that our solution requires a piece of foam, just like any kind of sponge. It does not need power or heat in order to treat water. So US is a tough market for drinking water, right? So we actually go to the third world for a lot of pilot to see how we can help deliver clean water to the people, to the millions of people out there in the US market. Legionella in hospitals and hotels become more and more an issue, and we believe through a pilot that we have a solution, a very simple solution to prevent Legionella outbreak from happening in the United States, right? And we're doing pilot. But during the pandemic, and we just say, hey, wait a minute. If we can do this in water, can we do this in air? Because look at any kind of face mask or air filter product today. They do one thing and one thing only, which is really they collect all the bad stuff inside the system, but actually itself become a very big issue because they are just staying there, right? They're not going anywhere, and they can be contaminate the environment later on when you dispose it improperly and even create more issues. So we're just thinking if our stuff can actually kill all those passengers in water, can do that in air upon contact. So we actually went to do a lot of research, went through a lot of publications and did our own tests, and we found out that, hey, we have a strong belief, we're 99.9% sure that what we can do in water can actually happen in the air as well. So why don't we just look into, making a better face mask as well air filters, right? And during this pandemic. So that is something we're working right now as our new focus. And we believe we can actually produce the industry's first pathogen killing face mask and air filtration system that works better than anything on the market today. And that is something we're working on. So we're talking to a lot of academians. We're talking to NSF for grant. We're talking to a lot of private investors for venture fund as such. But my point is that I'm from China, right? So the word crisis in Chinese called 危机. It means danger and opportunity. But out of every crisis like we see today, there's always opportunity there, but you need to be adaptive. And I think with Able, we're on the right trajectory today to be even more successful by looking into things that can apply to people's daily life post or during this pandemic. And that's what we're doing today. And I think we have the right solution there. But this is actually a great example of how you take advantage of a crisis and a pandemic and really get out of it better than what you were before.
When I listened to how quickly you pivoted your direction, even though it's the same technology, the speed in which you changed the scope of what you were looking at doing speaks to some leadership skills that we were talking about that you believe every leader should practice during times of uncertainty. Could you share with me and people listening, what do you think leaders should stop doing during times of uncertainty as they look at maybe pivoting their companies, changing scope, or reassessing and doing that SWOT analysis?
I would say in times like that, there's really no time for SWOT analysis and all that, right? A lot of time, your instinct will be the right thing to rely on, right? So I think the leader should start doing just following a traditional model of a process and all that, right? Again, you need to be compliant, right? Stick to the basics. But the traditional way of thinking may not apply in a crisis like that, right? So you just got to do something different. I think it's actually more important about doing the right thing, but also by doing the right thing, right? You got to make sure that you have a team, right? Number one, I think it needs to be a diverse team and everybody have something to bring differently, right? And number two, mindset-wise, you need to have a leadership team that is very aligned about being adaptive, willing to change and take quick actions when applied. And the last thing you want in crisis like that is to have a debate, right? Over and over without making any decisions.
I think that is really important, that whole not having a debate, but really leading and helping your employees find perspective around what reality the company would like to see on the end of the pandemic, not only today, but tomorrow. And one of the things when we were talking that I thought was really interesting, you shared with me what you thought were some of the common mind traps that people fall into during times of uncertainty or disruption. Could you share some of those traps with us?
I think the first mind trap is just to feel like I'm stuck, right? There's nothing I can do, right? So I think this is just something like I said, there's always more solutions than problems out there, right? You got to have the mindset, I'm open-minded, I'm open to new challenge opportunities, right? And I can do something. So that's to me, that's most important. Second thing is that I think this also just time to talk, to make sure that you understand who the right people to talk to, right? So, and also in crisis like that, is also a great time to think about who are the people you can trust, right? If they are all people, especially when in company that you work with, big 400, 500 company, many people want to associate with you because the company, not because yourself, right? So this is also a time to really understand who really likes you, really to work you as a person instead of being instead of the name you carry, right? So I think this is also really time to think about, who are the people you can really, really, really rely on and really have a trustworthy relationship with each other. And this is really time to do that. And lastly, I think also as important is that it is never too late to pick up and learn something new, even career-wise, right? So don't just think that I'm too old for that. Hey, this is not right for me. Is this right thing to do, no matter how late, how old you are? Because I can tell you, in some cases, even within Able, one of the founders I've been working with on a daily basis, still with a lot of fresh idea, is somebody who is almost 80 years old, and he's working almost as good as a 20 years old mindset, right? So it is never too late to pick something new and become expert.
Well, and I so appreciate you putting that out there, because I think there is a bias that the ability to learn and innovate is bounded by age, and that's not true. And it's good for people like you to acknowledge the people who, of all ages, that are willing to upskill. And I really think that is one of the differences in great leaders and great team members. They are the people that are constantly learning, no matter what their age. And as I think about this, people fire their bosses, they never leave companies. And so, what leaders do well during crisis versus what they do not during crisis, a lot of it should be the same. And with that in mind, what do you think leaders should continue to do to be great leaders, whether they're in crisis today or not in crisis?
I think the three aspects I actually value most about leaders. One is about caring for the people, right? Even when I was a big company, AT&T, I would tell my team members that I care about you, right, as an individual. So my job here is to help you enhance your skill set and career path and your resume, right? Whether you eventually end up continue to work for AT&T or go outside, I want to be your cheerleader, and I want to help you to make the right decision for your career-wise, right? So I think so caring about people is the most important. Any leaders just want to use you, take advantage of you without caring about you, in my view, is not a good leader. It's all about people, number one. Second, I think leaders should continue to do is also about always refine your decision-making mechanism to make sure that you always have a backup plan. You always have a plan B after plan B, and whether it's a good time or bad time, right? So I think this is something very, very important to leaders. I think this is actually time to think about what is your contingency planning right now, right? And third, about the company itself, right? Mm-hmm. During a cyclone, even a turkey can fly very high, right? And this is time you really want to stress test your company's capability and your company's health. So I think you always want to, even at the you always want to think about, is the company in the right direction? Should I do something better? So I think incremental improvement is always needed for any company, even during good time.
That is so true and so powerful. And when I think about, as people look about leading, going forward, because before the pandemic, things had changed, and the employee relationship, and we just have a different type of work environment. What do you think leaders must start doing now in order to expand their leadership skills and to become even better leaders?
I would say, I cannot stress enough, it's about people. I think better leaders are the ones who care about people and really help people to do their best, right? You'll be surprised once people's capability and desire to be successful is unleashed. It's really a cascading effect. And as a matter of fact, they can become better you, right? So I think the thing is really about caring your people and help them go through this crisis stronger. And what your reward is that it will be a much better company. They can perform better. They can help you to be more successful. So do not be afraid that people who work for you or in your company will overshadow you, but try your best to get the best out of them. Whether during crisis, good time, this is very important, and this is most important.
Well, thank you, Larry, for sharing all of these insights. If you don't mind, I would like to do a quick lightning round with you and sort of switch up the topics on you. As a career coach, I'm getting a lot of questions from parents who have students going into college or graduating from college. Would you be open to answering a few questions that I have been getting and just put your thoughts around them?
Sure, definitely.
As you can imagine, parents are very nervous and the job market is very different. What would be one thing you would tell students who are looking at graduating in April 2020 or May 2020 as far as looking for a job in the midst of uncertainty and disruption? What would you tell them to be doing to be prepared to be hired and to make sure that they are somebody that companies want to hire even during crisis or after crisis? You know, what should they be doing?
I would say, first of all, I've been through a lot of crises myself, right? Remember when I graduated from MBA in 2002, that's during the burst of the dot-com economy, right? So I just saw that even from grade school like Kellogg, on average, when people graduate in previous years, they got on average 3 or 4 job offers, right? And during my year, and people only got like 1.4, even less job offer on average. But I managed to got I think about 4 job offers when I graduated. Why? Because you just still be flexible, right? Because I have my summer internship as a consultant, with Booz Allen, but they just stopped. They want to actually, stop hiring, for full time during that year. So so consulting might not be the right way to do it. And I said, I decided not to do Wall Street because I actually rather stick to technology and all that. So instead of just focus only on consulting, I was looking into go back to my roots, looking at all the other industrial opportunities, and that came out very successfully. So I always say that and also imagine you are young, sky is your limit eventually. Even if you have some difficulties right now, you can always get to what you want later on because you have a lot of advantages as young people. So be willing to open to new possibilities and ideas and do well. I think that will be my best advice to them. At the same time, talk to a lot of people. You always learn something new. Talk to people who are in a certain industry you're curious about. Talk to people in a company you want to work for, and they can always give you tip advice about how to make it.
Well, as a follow-up question, one of the things that's really confusing right now is the data coming out. And you have high school parents who are getting ready to send their kids off to college in an environment where there's probably at least one person laid off right now during the family, or maybe even 2, or they've taken a furlough or a pay cut. And when you look at the numbers, Higher Education magazine, which tracks where all college graduates are going after graduation, says that recent graduates, 41% of them are working in jobs that do not require a college degree. But on the other hand, everything you read in the Financial Times or the Wall Street Journal or Bloomberg says we're living in the age of a knowledge economy. Could you help us, disseminate these two very, it sounds like divergent data points on how to put that into the prospect of what is the ROI on college and how do I plan my college career so that I'm not one of the 41% working in a job that does not require a college degree? What advice would you give people?
I think it's about really what you want to do, right? If you look at a country like Germany, actually a blue collar worker makes more money than a white collar, right? Because if you really want about fix stuff and all that, you know what? In some cases, I have a friend with a PhD. He actually thinks it's pretty good if his son become a plumber, because plumber is actually a lot of good job. It's a pretty good job here in the United States, right? So I think college education, in my view, is probably will require eventually, because even as a plumber, when you deal with a lot of electronics, I think AI and cloud and technology are going to go to everywhere, right? So no matter what you want to do, even as a blue collar worker, I think a college or some kind of associate degree will be important to prepare you for the future, right? So you always become relevant. It'll give you the basics. And number two, I always, as Chinese, as Asian myself, a lot of parents want their kids to be in certain profession, whether legal or engineering or medical. I always just say that whatever parents tell you is relevant, but also it's more important about what is most important to you. You always want to work in a career, do a job that you feel passionate about, you like, instead of being forced to do something just because your parents or peer pressure. So I think I would say, whether it's college or not, that not really matter. Just make sure you have an education. So three things. One is that you want to have an education today that will set you a good foundation, whether a associate degree or college or something that will put you on a solid foundation. Number two, it is always about what's most important to you in the long, not short term, in the long run, right? And number three is all about continuous education, because even you have a college degree, you have a PhD, you might become irrelevant in about 5 years, because I see so many disruptions. I see technology change all the time, right? Always be a learner, always willing to know something continuously. And that to me, those three things will be recipe towards a successful career down the road.
And one thing I was going to ask you, because when I answer this question, I think what college does for a lot of people is it teaches you how to learn. But on the other hand, I joke about, I hated managerial accounting. And I loved all kinds of classes that I chose in my major, but I really didn't enjoy that. And I think for a lot of people, college teaches you to get out of your box of what you feel comfortable and to explore other areas. What do you think about the whole concept that, maybe colleges need to pivot from silo instruction and go back to that Renaissance instruction where you're learning across disciplines, so that we could bring a more open approach around processes and how we view the way we work or the way we innovate?
I would say it's all about digitalization. You look at, I think college is actually, education is really ripe for disruption, right? Number one, is you look at any budget of major university of college today, how much you really spend of your budget is really in real education itself. I think it's actually, the portion gets smaller. I think to me, this is something fundamentally wrong, right? So, and second is that I believe you can actually do, even right now, it really shows that you don't really need a physical campus in many cases, or your campus or the money spent on buildings and classroom can be way smaller when you adopt digital and digitalization. And thirdly, that I think a degree matters, but a lot of time what the skill set is more important, right? So I can see there's so many micro degrees opportunities down the road when people can learn everything digitally, remotely, through a long distance. So I think this pandemic is also going to fundamentally change the way people get educated and would actually adopt the digitalization even faster and accelerate it. And I think this is over time you actually see that college education might look totally different and down the road. That will be one of my predictions.
And in that vein, do you ever see a time when colleges start standardizing what a class means? For example, I feel like, when somebody sees a certification in AWS Cloud or an IBM blockchain certification, companies feel really comfortable hiring the person because they're very clear about what they learned and what that certificate means. Do you see colleges going to a more standardized approach where classes are interchangeable between colleges and their standards set so that employers understand, around technology, what they're actually hiring and what they learned at the college? Do you see a pivot that way?
Totally. I totally see that, right? I think a lot of time when you even look at software education today, I feel fortunate. I work with a lot of young people who just fresh graduate from colleges today, even from the software, technology. And I just do not think what they have been taught in college had prepared them well enough to start a job on day one. So I think it's totally feasible, and I can see for the future that the employers get more involved in the curriculum setting, as well as in preparing the colleges and universities for the latest technology. I can see that. And second is that I think the perfect college of two things. For college that for people to follow your passion, but at the same time build a safe cushion for the young people out there, so that when you graduate, you will somewhat have a skill set to look for a job. So that is why in many cases I'm just joking that you want to learn art, understand how you survive as an artist. You might want to also prepare, get a minor or something that will get you a job, so to survive, so that you become a burden of your family and all that, right? And I think that's sort of what I see realistically down the road.
Well, it's really interesting because you were talking about getting a job. In 2018, Deloitte did a survey of the largest companies and the future of work. And in 2018, only 42% of companies had more than 50% of the workforce as full-time employees. What would you tell parents in an environment where, you went to corporate America, I went to corporate America, and there were training programs which they don't exist really in the same way for recent college grads? What would you tell them to prepare for a market that more than likely they're not going to have a career path in corporate America that look like their parents' career path or their grandparents' career path?
I would say this is a whole different world than the time when their parents or even grandparents went to work, right? So working for one job, in a large corporation, to retire is a fantasy. I think it eventually, even look at myself, right? I was educated as an electrochemist, working on battery for electrical cars to start with, and I went to the semiconductor industry. Then I had my MBAs, and I would get more into work in marketing, product, and strategy, and into telco. Now I'm actually more in the cloud and software space. So I think two things, right? One is that the days are over for you to work the same job for 20 years and retire. I think retirement will become less likely, right? And second, in the traditional way. And second, I think look at disruption and all that. I think the legalization of workforce is going to become a norm. So every day you need to be ready to be a individual contributor or individual contractor down the road, because I can tell you one thing I can see is that gig economy is going to disrupt everything people do, and it's going to have a ripple effect. Literally, nobody can escape. You got to be yourself ready. So how you prepare yourself for that? Number one, always be willing to be on your own as an entrepreneur. And number two, have the right skill set, just in case if something happens. And I cannot just stress enough about this.
Well, thank you for letting me ask you some questions to share with parents and students who are looking at college through a disrupted lens. This has been really helpful, and I'm going to ask you one last question.
Sure.
You know, as you think about, you know, you must be digital. What are 3 must-have digital skills? I think about when, you know, Word came around and then it was Excel, and we've moved so far away from that. I think parents, when they hear you must have digital skills, are confused by what that means. Can you just give us even just 3 digital skills you think that every college student, high school student should make sure they learn in order to be able to work today, you know, in the type of environment we have, which is very technology based?
I would say that being digital does not mean you have to be a programmer, right? Because there are a lot of people developing tools for you. I think digital is more about being able to use the latest tool. So I think the 3 things to think about. One is that make sure you have the basics, right? Whether it's Microsoft PowerPoint, Excel, Word, or more, just get familiar yourself with the basics, right? Understand that how you can make a PowerPoint presentation, how you know how you can use Excel. I think those are, and I think over time this can tool evolve over time as well. And number 2, understanding that cloud and mobile is going to eat the world, right? So that you know, always be able to use a mobile phone or the application of your mobile phone, like Zoom, whether Zoom or WebEx, and all that, right? Being able to leverage your mobile technology to work remotely and effectively. And thirdly, like I said, always just you know, go and read the latest coverage from magazines or all that. Understand what's coming, what's the latest, and be relevant. You do not need to be a master of it, but be relevant. Always understand what's out there to help you. The digital out there will help you do your work better.
Well, Larry, thank you. It's been a pleasure as always. And thank you for taking the time to share some insights with us.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you so much, Tracy, for the opportunity.